So in this video, I just want to cover a few of the pickups that I've recently done to start March. And to get right into it, the first one we're going to be looking at is a Lost Origin booster box case from the Pokemon Center. Six boxes rather. This is the cheapest I can find it. The price is in Canadian. And if you see some squares on the screen, I'm just blocking out personal information. Don't want to dox myself. Lost Origin or Brilliant Stars is going to be the next set to take off, guys, as we've seen with Chilling Reign and Fusion Strike. I imagine they're going to be the next ones to go out on the Pokemon Center just because of their current market value being higher, or rather being cheaper on the Pokemon Center website than what you can find on eBay and in a lot of stores. So people are turning to the Pokemon Center to buy their cases, just like I did. I have 31 boxes of Lost Origin. I think it's a great set. I mean, if we'll take a look later at the cards and do a little chat about that, but that's the first one. Case of Lost Origin. Second one, Case of Astral Radiance. Again, I made my first video on this. I thought it was a sleeper set. I still think it's a sleeper set. And mainly just because it has some great cards. Doesn't have a massive chase card. But one of the promising things going for Astral is it didn't get a massive reprint like Silver Tempest and Lost Origin. So I think in the future it could do very well simply because there isn't as many boxes as those sets. Now the third one we're going to look at is Paradox Rift. I bought a case. Shout out to Trevor TCG. I watched one of his videos and was talking to him. He said Kansan Games said Paradox Rift for 120 Canadian a box, which is about $90 US, I believe, which in Canada, we honestly almost never see boxes below 130 Canadian. So whenever that happens, I mean, it's definitely probably a good chance to pick them up. I've never seen Paradox Rift this low. I don't think I'll ever see it lower than this because I imagine by the time Black Friday rolls around and towards the end of the year, the set, it'll already be essentially over a year old and people aren't going to want to let it go for 120 or they're going to have lower supplies than they have now. Kansan Games had about 250 boxes. Hobbiesville still has about 600. So finding it this cheap, I was okay with picking up a case. And finally, the last thing I picked up was a case of Paldea Evolved for 790 with tax. It came out to 830 Canadian. I'm really bullish on Paldea Evolved. I love the cards, and again, we'll get into that here in a second. I think I have 15 booster boxes of Paldea Evolved at this point, and I'm definitely looking to add more at a good price. So if we just look at Astral Radiance here quickly, I mean, looking at the box price, this is the past year. It's up about 8 or 9% on the year, and again, I think it may be out of stock on the Pokemon Center by the end of the year. I don't think it's going to go out before Lost Origin Brilliant Stars. I don't think it's going to see as large of gains as those boxes. But I think it's still going to do well once it goes out on the Pokemon Center. And again, if you're making 8-9% on your investment, like that's pretty good for a year. You know, that's pretty much S&P average over the past, 20-30 years. So, not bad. Again, when we look at the cards, I personally think it's a sleeper set. You have the Machamp, Starmie. Dialga and Palkia are actually really beautiful cards as well. And then you have interesting things, the Beedrill, you have Iridia, Garchomp. The set doesn't have a massive chase card, and again, that's the big problem with Astral Radiance that people have. But for me, it's still a solid set, and I do, me picking it up, my investment into Astral Radiance is based more so on that there's going to be less boxes of it in the future, rather than being the top set in Sword and Shield. Which, speaking of top set in Sword and Shield, could potentially be Lost Origin. Now, if we look at the past year, pretty flat. Obviously, it had the massive reprint. We were up to almost $170. Came down to $127, and we've already recovered to $149. Which, if you're buying boxes on the Pokemon Center at only $143, we're above Pokemon Center pricing at this point, which really gives you a good opportunity to buy up those boxes on the Pokemon Center. You're getting them straight from Pokemon. You know they aren't going to be tampered with. To me, I mean, look at this. Like one sale unopened, $165. That was today. So people really want this set, and they're willing to pay up for it if they can't find it at a cheaper price. Again, I just picked up the case. I love it. I may pick up a bit more. We'll have to see how things go. We'll look at the cards here shortly. Giratina V, again, this is why people are big into Lost Origin. You have the Giratina V, and it's holding at over $260. Then you have the Aerodactyl at over $80. And then you have good Pikachu, Trainer Gallery cards. You have the Rotom in there. Outside of those top 5 cards, to me, the set's not super deep. which, it really depends on what your philosophy is when it comes to investing in sets. Do you think depth is more important? Do you think having the top chase card is more important? I think that the top chase card is going to carry Lost Origin. I mean, that Guillotine, it's a beautiful card. It's holding well. And then, of course, you have the Aerodactyl that's doing well also. So, again, I really don't think you can go wrong with any of these sets I'm going to show you. But the final two sets, a bit interesting to start talking about Scarlet and Violet. I know a lot of people on YouTube are still talking about Sword and Shield, which I think is fair. I made my first video on Sword and Shield booster boxes, and I think you should be picking them up. But I also think a lot of people are going to be behind the curve when it comes to getting into Scarlet and Violet. I mean, when we look at Paldea Evolved, it's essentially already been out almost a year. And as you can see, we hit a bottom close to, $90, whatever it was. We're already at $107 at this point, guys. Do we think Paldea Evolved can get reprinted? Obviously it could. When I look at a lot of stores, they have less Paldea Evolved than they do sets like Paradox Rift. And obviously Paradox Rift came out after Paldea Evolved, so that kind of makes sense. But at the same time, even when Paldea Evolved came out, it seemed like stores had a lot less of it. It seems like it's a bit harder to find. And obviously, the cards in the set are much better, in my opinion, than Paradox Rift. You have the Iono Chase card. You have the Magikarp, Chien-Pao, Raichu. The Tyranitar, is a beautiful card as well. Then you have some other cards, that are newer cards that the older collectors aren't going to like. You have the Chuyu EX, you have the Tinkatong EX, you have the Squawkabilly. So cards that... Oh, and obviously you have the starting Pokemon. You have the Meowscarada, Fuecoco, Skeledirge. I mean, people that are getting into Pokemon through Paldea Gen 9, they're going to love these cards in the future. It may not be your cup of tea if you're, a first gen, second gen, and, that's where your bias is at. But when we look at the artwork of the cards, guys, I mean, it's phenomenal artwork, especially the top cards, Magikarp, Iono. But even, when you go further down, the Raichu's great, the Tyranitar I really love. What are the other ones I really like? The Meowscarada, I mean, some beautiful artwork. So I think Paldea Evolved is going to do well in the future. Maybe I'm getting in a bit too early, but I would rather get in a bit early and have that money sit around for a few extra months than be behind the curve, which I think a lot of people are going to be in, 6 months, a year's time, maybe even 18 months, when this box is $140 potentially or more. And finally, Paradox Rift. I mean, a lot of people don't like Paradox Rift, and I kind of understand why. If you don't like the Pokemon, the Paradox Pokemon, it makes sense to me why you're not huge into these sets. But, I mean, guys, I'm picking it up for $90 a box. Like, we're not going to see it get much cheaper than this. And we've seen Paradox Rift kind of bottom out. I mean, mid-December it was about $90, and we've already seen it hold, mid-March now, $92. So is it going to go lower than this? Potentially it could go a bit lower. You could probably find it a bit lower than this as well if you shop around, if you're in the States or using TikTok deals. But here in Canada, I mean, that's why I picked it up, right? We normally never see boxes lower than $130 Canadian. So this was an amazing deal at Kansan Games. I picked up a case, and I may even pick up more. But just to make a note, I mean, the artwork in Paradox Rift is not terrible. You have the Roaring Moon, which is a beautiful card. Like, Paradox Pokemon aside, not being your favorite Pokemon, just look at the artwork, guys. The artwork of these cards is phenomenal. Same with the Iron Valiant. If you're not a fan of Paradox Pokemon, I understand. The artwork's amazing. You have Iron Thorns in the background. Then you have the Goldengo. You have the Groudon, which is, again, that's, a fan favorite. And it makes sense why it's holding it. It has amazing artwork with the volcanoes in the background. The Iron Hands special illustration rare is holding well. I believe Iron Hands is a pretty competitive card, and that kind of makes sense why, just the full art is, and the random EX cards, $13, $14. So I think, that's not really a card to be on the lookout for. But when you look at the top 6 cards with the special illustration and the illustration rares, Altaria obviously as well. But then when we get outside the top 6, there still are some pretty decent cards. I mean, like the Morpeko here is pretty cool, at least in my opinion, artwork-wise. I love the Steelix, only $10. Steelix might not be your favorite Pokemon. I just love the image of it. It's beautiful. You have some gold cards too as well. And then I forgot to mention this, the Gimme Ghoul, which goes with the gold angle. You know, they basically are top and bottom cards. So I think that's going to hold some decent value again in the future as well. We get into the second page, you know, you have lots of trainer cards, lots of some gold cards as well. But again, like even the artwork in some of these cards, like you look at the Joltik here, like this is a beautiful artwork. You know, it's a $6 card. Obviously that might lose some value as time goes on, but beautiful card. Let me know in the comments what you're picking up, if you agree or disagree with my investments as of now. Thanks for watching. Stay safe wherever you are in the world, and I'll catch you in the next one.